Councillors, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the worship for the Mayor of the Borough of Rushmoor.
Good evening, members. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? A bit louder. Good evening, everybody. Is that working? Good evening, everybody. Before I open the meeting and commence the formal agenda, would you please remain standing for prayers by my chaplain, the Reverend Malcolm Cummings.
Thank you very much, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Deputy Mayor, councillors of Rushmoor and other council officials here. Also, good evening to those who may be watching on our streaming service. I stand here to pray and to address you very shortly, standing on the great work of previous other mayoral chaplains who have served this borough so well. 2 Corinthians 13 verses 11 to 12, reading from the Message version, the Apostle Paul wrote, "That's about it, friends. Be cheerful, keep things in good repair, keep your spirits up, think in harmony, be agreeable. Do all that, and the God of love and peace will be with you for sure." Clapping with one hand is impossible. Try it, it just can't be done. It was the Chinese President Jiang Zemin who said it takes two hands to clap. Working together is important. US Senator George Mitchell, who, following the Northern Ireland Good Friday Agreement, said, and I quote, "We can do individually, or what we can do individually bears no comparison to what we can do together." I believe that as our councillors in representing your various wards, you are in an honoured position to help, to build and to develop this wonderful borough. As you together prepare to conduct official business on behalf of the citizens of Rushmoor, let us do so with those citizens in mind. Let us do so in unity, but not uniformity, with diligence and compassion, and with fervency without disrespect. At this time, we also take this opportunity to acknowledge the very sad passing of two former borough and county councillors. Councillor Roland Dibbs from the Conservatives, who represented the Nelwood ward, and Councillor Sheila Stevenson from the Liberal Democrats, who represented the St Mark's ward. Two councillors who served with honour and served with dignity. We thank God for their many years of service and commitment and help given to this borough's residents. I think it's only right and fitting that we should at this moment just remain silent for a minute in honour of our two colleagues departed. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your goodness. We thank you for your love for us. We thank you for Rushmoor Borough Council. We thank you for its elected officials. We thank you for its staff and everyone who makes the council tick. We pray for the borough. We pray for its citizens, from the youngest to the oldest. We pray for its continued transition and development, and that this will bring a blessing of prosperity to everyone. We remember the families of our former colleagues, Councillor Dibbs and Councillor Stevenson. May you give their families strength and comfort during this time of mourning. And Father, we finally pray for our armed forces and their families as we celebrate Armed Forces Week. We bless and thank you for your grace, your mercy, and your loving kindness. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
You may be seated.
Thank you, Reverend Cummings, and a very warm welcome to you on your first meeting of the council as my chaplain. Everybody seated? All seated. Turning now to the formal agenda, item 1 is to confirm the minutes of the annual meeting of the council held on the 25th of May 2021. Do I have a proposer? Do I have a proposer for the minutes? Oh, I can see somebody. Oh, Councillor Muschamp, sorry. And a seconder? I can't see. Who are you looking at?
Paul Taylor.
Oh, Councillor Paul Taylor. Those in favour, please show. Those against?
Not even Mike Roberts.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. We now move on to item 2, Mayor's announcements. On Monday this week, the Armed Forces Day flag was raised in Princess Gardens in Aldershot. The Mayoress and I were joined by the Deputy Lieutenant of Hampshire, Lieutenant General Sir Mark Manns, Garrison Commander Lieutenant Colonel Nick Burley, my chaplain Reverend Malcolm Cummings, the Deputy Leader Councillor Ken Muschamp, Military Champion Councillor Jackie Vosper, and the Shadow Military Champion Councillor Nadia Martin, together with the standard bearers from Aldershot and Farnborough, Royal British Legion. The flag will be flown to the end of the Armed Forces Day on the 26th of June. Members might wish to be aware that beacons of light will be beamed from the roofs of 6 buildings across Aldershot Town Centre during Saturday evening. The idea is that people from around the area can celebrate and pay their respects to the armed forces without having to leave their gardens or be part of a large crowd. In addition to this, Princess Hall and the bandstand in Princess Gardens will be lit up. The bandstand will contain a school arts project over the weekend. On Tuesday, I was delighted to cut the ribbon at the reopening of the North Town Post Office and the formal opening of the coffee shop there. There were a number of other guests present, including Peter Gordon of BBC Radio Surrey, local ward councillors Keith Dibble, Gaynor Austin and Sarah Spall, and a number of distinguished guests from the Frawley community. I wish Mr. Dan Saki every success for the future. The first meeting of the charity committee was held last week. A programme of events is being put together, COVID restrictions permitting. In particular, I have a few dates for your diaries. 2 Mayoresses afternoon tea events on Friday the 10th of December and Wednesday the 6th of April. My charity ball on Friday the 11th of March. We're also planning to hold a charity golf tournament during my memorial year. A date for which has not been set has yet to be agreed, but the details will go out to members as soon as known. And finally, now that we can meet in person, this is the first opportunity we have had to present Councillor Sue Carter with her past member's badge and scroll, signifying the Council's resolution on her mayoral year. Councillor Carter, the scroll and past member's badge are on display in front of the stage. As we're not able to come and hand this over to you in person, please can you come forward to collect your past badge and scroll from the table in front of the stage. Would you like to say a few words, Councillor?
I don't know which way to stand, actually, because it's rude to have my back to the mayor and then I feel rude to all of you. But basically, I'd like to say thank you. It was an absolute delight to be the mayor, considering I didn't want to be the mayor for lots of reasons, and I was allowed to be the mayor and be me. I obviously would like to thank Ian, who, as Jib would say, was my bodyguard throughout the year, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. I think also it was really hard because I wasn't able to finish my year, and we were all hit by Councillor Frank Russ' death. I really had a lot of time for Frank, and it was me that persuaded him, please do it again, I want to work with you. And we had some lovely times together. When we went to Poland, he was like my travel guide, very fond memories, and it's just a shame that it went the way it did. The last bit, all I could do was write to people. I think I did about 150 letters to people personally, kids, people that were struggling. But I'd like to thank you, Mayor, for this. It's a shame that I've got my back a bit to you. I don't know which way to go. And I will say to Ian, and he says thank you as well. Thank you.
We now move on to item 3, Standing Order 8 questions. I have to report that no questions have been submitted under Standing Order 8. Item 4 on the agenda is to consider the recommendations of the Cabinet and the Corporate Governance, Audit and Standards Committee. The first report concerns the Council Business Plan 2021 to 2024. And I call upon the Leader of the Council, Councillor David Clifford, to introduce this item.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I'm not going to say too much. I think you've got a report in the Annex 1 that speaks for itself. This is a 3-year plan. It's a really exciting plan. I can't believe we've got this much into it, but we have. We've really focused on place and people, so it's made extremely simple for the simplest of councillors, myself included. So we really focus on what's important in this borough, people and place, and formally move its adoption. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ken Mushkamp, do you wish to speak now? The item is now open for debate. If you wish to speak, please indicate clearly. Councillor Guinness, is that?
Thank you. We know how important a business plan is, to have a guide and to have an aim, but the key thing is to deliver. There are lots of key elements through this plan that are extremely important. Even from our side, we want to help and deliver on these, but also scrutinise on how we deliver them and if it's to the full efficiency, effect and benefit of our residents. So we will judge on delivery. The plans have been changed in the light of the impact of COVID-19. Can we have a report on what was dropped and where we were at on the progress of those items? What areas and where they were left at before they were dropped? Thank you.
Councillor Roberts? No?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm glad the leader was so effusive in relationship to the plan. I just found it very bland. And if you're looking at the performance of what has been delivered or what isn't being attended to, then the performance has looked on a series of analysis and outcomes. One of the features that always underscores the business plan is the fact that it's full of very good platitudes about itself and what we are doing and what the possibilities of what we would be doing in the roll forward period. But there's never any really hard analysis of the performance that we have done in the previous year or years. And I think that is something that really needs to be looked at, because I think if people look to assess how and on what basis this council is operating, how it is reflecting on some of the key issues that people out there are concerned about, how it is tackling some of the bigger issues in this particular borough, which have been exposed to view by COVID-19, then I think really we need to be looking at those, considering those health inequalities, children's poverty in this particular borough, the failures of housing, particularly social housing. I saw some figures in the House of Commons profile literally today, and we've only really established about 6 social rented housing for the last 2 or 3 years, which I think is appalling in a borough like this. So there are many issues in many areas, and I've just touched on a few which concern me that we should be very much focused in on. And this plan doesn't give you any idea of what the performance has been and who has assessed that particular performance and on what basis that any idea about what is being included and the next steps we need to consider. And whilst I've got the floor, can I congratulate the Reverend Malcolm Cummins and the Afro-Caribbean community in relationship to the Windrush 50th anniversary. We thank your community for all the work that you have done over those many years in this community, and we stand, some of us, steadfast with you in relationship to your community and its future. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Keith Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to begin by thanking you for coming to Northtown on Tuesday, and your presence really made the day, along with the other VIPs that you mentioned. I'd also like to use this opportunity just to pay tribute, really, to the 2 people that the chaplain mentioned, Roland Dibbs, who was a good friend of mine, and Councillor Sheila Stevenson, who was elected on the same day as myself in 1984, and those around the council that day. Sheila, in her own way, was almost a pain to everyone, officer and member, but really fought hard for St Mark's. Where Roland Dibbs, this is one of those things that people don't know, but in the early 90s, when he was operations director of a security company, and I was head of real estate for Ericsson in the UK. I had to terminate the contract with him, and because of poor performance, and he took it, as ever with Roland, with great dignity and professionalism. And then the following night, he was chairing a meeting that I was attending. So it was a small world, isn't it? So the council business plan, and actually Councillor Spall, Austin and myself had coffee with Councillor Newell on Sunday in the Outpost Cafe. And he told us that he was so relaxed about the plan that he was heading off to Cornwall and the leader would present it. In fact, what he said was, there's a few gaps in it and he's best to get out the way. So really picking up on that, there's a few points I want to raise. Can the leader, in the absence of Councillor Newell, please confirm the definitions used in the report? In the report, para 3.4 and 3.6, 3.4, the council business plan identifies 10 projects for delivery over the next 3 years. 3.6, the council business plan identifies 8 projects for delivery over the next 3 years. So the question really, does delivery mean completion, operational, and nothing's outstanding? That was my interpretation. Then I read the document that goes with it, and there's a slight change of emphasis. Let me find it now. Yeah, on, and as ever with the document, and we all know this in the corporate and business world, that if you want to influence the great and the good, put lots of colour pictures in. And this document is full of colour pictures. But under people, it says, over the next 3 years, we will focus on the following activities. And under place, it says, over the next 3 years, we will focus on the following activities. So is the report saying that those 18, I think they are, 10 people and 8 places or projects will be completed in that 3-year period, or will they just be focused on, which means they will be work in progress? I look forward, in the absence of Councillor Newell, the leader's response. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other speaker? Councillor? Oh, it's Sophie Port.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From what everybody has said this evening, I mean, I personally think there's nothing in this plan that is objectionable or that I wouldn't support, and I actually welcome some of the additions. However, I think there's no tangible evidence to show how we will monitor the plan. For example, page 14, 3.3, improving the health and well-being of residents. You know, I think that's something I'm ever so passionate about. But what I have an issue with, it's the questions about how, when, and all of the other things about monitoring that I would like to have seen in this document. I think, as Councillor Guinness was saying, previously we've said we will judge on the plan on delivery, but how do we know that what we've achieved? How do we know that if what we've implemented has actually been an improvement for our residents? Because actually, if we've got no way of monitoring it, if we just say something's finished or something's completed, how do we actually know that that's improved the health and well-being of our residents, because there isn't a specific target? I think on page 16, 3.7, again, it says each of the projects contained within the Council Business Plan 2021 to 2024 will be monitored on a quarterly basis with exception reports which will provide details of any projects not proceeding as planned or where activity has been completed. Again, what's the impact? What are the benefits? And how are we actually really seeing those improvements? And reading that paragraph there, for me, it seems very much like that's a tick box exercise, rather than it actually being evidence that what we're doing is improving the life of our residents. However, saying that, I really welcome the desire to revisit this business plan, especially in view of climate, equality and diversity, and supporting the community and supporting communities. But unfortunately, tonight there's not enough sustenance around that monitoring for me to fully support it this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ken Mushkamp.
Thanks very much. First and foremost, what we have here is a rolling three-year business plan, backed by, and that's not in this, a whole wealth of documents. If you want the detail, you look beyond this. What we're looking at here is the public view version of the business plan. It's very much, I suppose, since we're in a theatre, it's very much like the advertising brochure for the performance of The Sound of Music. It gives you a brief overview of what to expect, but if you want to find out more, you read all the added documentation. So the important thing is what we have here is the presentation very much for the public, very much for everybody that doesn't want all that minutiae detail. But it is there. If you wish for it, you will find it. We have in the council a raft of scrutiny operations, be it by task and finish, be it by committee, be it by panels. That's where the scrutiny takes place. That's what they're there for. This is very much about, these are the bullets we want. We know that 4 years ago when we started the idea of regenerating Aldershot, we genuinely thought it would be a couple of years. Little did we know it would take us more years than we thought to assemble the land, more years than we thought to go through due diligence, more years than we thought to come up with a cohesive plan. So all those things reflect in a rolling business plan. You will see it, all the documentation that sits behind it. So please read this in the context that this is, for want of a better phrase, the showcase. Everybody can go and see this is what we intend to do. These are our plans. If you wish to scrutinise it, please look at the documentation from all those panels that will give you that detail. Thanks very much.
Thank you. As there are no other speakers, please can I ask the Leader of the Council to sum up?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I'll pick up a few things. This is very much the manifesto of the council, and we've just done an election recently, and clearly the Conservative manifesto locally got a very strong support. We did extremely well. I don't remember anybody shouting about any Labour manifesto, and Labour plans for Aldershot were completely and utterly rejected. So Labour have got some net coming in here to the first council meeting and start criticising a manifesto which saw us get a landslide victory locally, picking up 2 Labour seats. Now, some other things. Regeneration. Anybody's got to be blind to not see the delivery on regeneration happening both in Aldershot and Farnborough. If anybody suggests, and typical of the opposition coming in after a beating in the elections, to suggest that we're not delivering on our promises, anybody walking around Aldershot and Farnborough can see exactly what we're doing. This is not a Conservative council that talks. This is a Conservative council that delivers. It's a Conservative council that takes action. We like taking action. We like doing stuff. We don't like talking about it. So we won't spend an awful lot of time in council talking about it because we're so busy out delivering regeneration, delivering over 90 green projects, delivering on health in our borough with our doctors. No one's ever worked with our doctors before. We're the first administration that's done it, Councillor Porter. Equality, dealing with equality, taking it head on. That's what this Conservative council are doing, and I call for a recorded vote on this one. This is all about delivering for residents, and I'm going to be supporting a plan that delivers for residents, place and people. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor.
So, members, the request for a recorded vote is for a recommendation on page 13 of the report, which is recommending the council to approve the council's 3-year business plan, April 2021 to March 24, in accordance with the attachment to the report. Councillor Gaynor Austin. Councillor Jessica Alton. Diane Bedford. Jib Belbase. Jay Bridgman not here. Councillor Jonathan Canty. Councillor Sue Carter. Councillor Charles Chowdhury. Councillor Sophia Chowdhury. Councillor Abel Chowdhury. Councillor David Clifford. Councillor Rod Cooper. Councillor Peter Carrar. Councillor Peter Cullum. Councillor Keith Dibble. Councillor Christine Guinness. Councillor Ashley Halstead. Councillor Michael Hope. Councillor Lee Jeffers. Councillor Kabesh KC. Councillor Mara Makanura. Councillor Nadia Martin. Councillor Steve Masterson. Councillor Thomas Mitchell. Councillor Marina Munro. Councillor Ken Muschamp. Councillor Sophie Porter. Councillor Mike Roberts. Thank you. Councillor Maurice Sheehan. Councillor Mike Smith. Councillor Sarah Spall. Councillor not here. Councillor Paul Taylor. Councillor Martin Tennant. Councillor Nem Thapper. Thank you. Councillor Jackie Vosper. Deputy Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Abstain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's carried.
The second report from the Cabinet, on pages 31 to 40, recommends the approval of the additional revenue budget to facilitate the rollout of food waste collection service approved by the Cabinet. I call upon Councillor Sheehan as the Operational Services Portfolio Holder to introduce this item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise rather nervously this evening, Mr. Mayor, at the front of the class, as it were. The position usually reserved for the naughty or misbehaved child. I will do my best, I think is probably what I'm going to say, Mr. Mayor. Can I first of all, Mr. Mayor, associate myself with the comments of Reverend Cummings and also Councillor Keith Dibble regarding former councillors Roland Dibbs and Councillor Sheila Stevenson, both of whom in their time championed the cause of improving the environment within the borough of Rushmoor, and also did much to promote recycling within the borough. Mr. Mayor, councillors will remember that on the 20th of June 2019, the council declared a climate emergency and committed itself to delivering a plan to enable a green and sustainable Rushmoor and a carbon neutral council by 2030. And in developing that plan, it would seek to improve the borough's recycling rates. Our recycling rates, it has to be said, have been fairly stagnant, certainly in the relegation zone of local authorities for a number of years, and that the proposal to introduce a weekly food waste service will greatly enhance our recycling rates and reduce help to reduce our carbon footprint within the borough. It has to be said that this isn't a destination; it is the beginning of a journey. And the council is absolutely committed, and certainly this administration is absolutely committed to delivering on our promise to make Rushmoor a much more green and sustainable service. You will see from the report that Cabinet has already approved the introduction of a food waste service for the borough, and also in doing that to reduce the current residual waste service down to a fortnightly collection. What you have before you this evening is a recommendation for the revenue budget to enable that service, and I'm delighted to move that recommendation, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Tennant, do you wish to speak now? Thank you. It's open to debate. Does anybody want? I can see some hands going up. Councillor Sophie Porter.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was delighted to be part of this working group on something I feel is a really important subject. Food waste will become mandatory, and soon councils up and down the country will be implementing their own version of this service. As elected members, it is our job to ensure our residents in Rushmoor get the best deal with the lowest impact on climate and something that is really good value for money. And I believe this deal gives residents just that. And I would urge everybody here this evening to improve the additional revenue budget to facilitate the rollout of this food waste service. I think early communications have raised some concerns with our residents, and it's incredibly important for our comms team to dispel myths, tell our residents the right story, and bring them along on our journey to implement this service. And I think what is really important is how we educate individuals to use less and reduce their overall output. And I would urge the Cabinet member for operational services to ensure adequate budget is assigned for such educational matters. Not all residents are going to like this service, but I wholeheartedly agree that the working group worked very well together to ensure that it was the best deal for residents. And I wholeheartedly support the approval of the additional revenue budget this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Keith Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the proposals before us tonight for the food waste collection service and endorse the comments made by my colleague, Councillor Sophie Porter. I want to be really parochial tonight and focus on North Town, where we have a number of flats, apartments, a plus 55-year-old person unit in Alma House, and many of the houses on the North Town estate have shared bin collections. And what's the common link between all of these? It's communal bin areas. And at present, you know, our contracts team have a devil's own job at times dealing with the mixed waste we have at the moment. Also, those communal bin areas tend to become a dumping ground for people that don't live there. There's fly tipping, and never a week goes by when one block or another is not being collected because of that mixed or unacceptable or untidy area. So the question really to the portfolio holder, and I know I'm sure he'll have all the answers, but how are we going to educate those residents? Because some of them obviously do everything right, but there's a depressingly high number where the collection is difficult today. So how are we going to do that? The comms programme, and I know Councillor Porter's got some strong views on that, really needs to be easily understood, but straight to the point as well. And is Councillor Sheila able to say when in the spring that's likely to commence for flats and apartments? And have we as an authority been speaking to the various registered housing providers who tend to be the landlords of those many of those blocks, or the management companies that run them for the residents? So as Councillor Sheehan said, you know, our recycling performance is relegation stuff, and we do need to work together to achieve that. But I'd really like to slightly misquote the famous sayings of an ex-winning election Prime Minister who said education, education, education. And I think to make this work, we have to educate the residents, not patronise them, but educate them into why this needs to be done. And that's why Councillor Gaynor Austin and myself at Overview and Scrutiny Committee requested that we review as Overview and Scrutiny before day one of the introduction of the service, so we can have a look at what the education process is, not to criticise, but just to make sure it works, because we were all slightly on the back foot a few weeks ago when the press announcement came before the members' briefing came, which meant that many members weren't really able to answer the questions. We don't want a repeat of that. So yes, I'll be supporting this, but I do have concerns long-term concerns over apartments and these communal bin areas. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts?
Yes. This week, the CCC, the Climate Change Committee, produced a pretty damning report on the performance of every aspect of the government in relationship to climate emergency. And part of that is obviously recycling. We, I think, people have used the football analogy in relationship to relegation. I think basically we haven't even been in the relegation. We've been out of in the Southern League or the Nationwide League. Our performance has been pathetic. That's the best way of describing it. Now, I've got a top-level meeting, as many others in Europe have, very shortly with the British Ambassador's office in Brussels, looking at whole aspects of how better we in Europe, and particularly in this country, need to look at in relationship to the circular economy. In Amsterdam, which I'm also involved with, we have a thing called the donut, the Amsterdam donut, which is a much more complex way of looking at things and how we need to recycle. And that includes textiles, that includes a whole lot of issue areas, which we as a council, we as a government area, i.e. the UK, haven't even picked up. Now let's have a look at waste, because that is one of the bête noirs of performance. And Councillor Dibble is quite right. You know, the comms is going to have to be very good. Let's have a look at a few of the issues at the moment. Sell-by dates. Many people have got this fixation that the sell-by date is the chuck-out date. That they have to put a sell-by date, but it's not. It's not a negative feature. It can be a positive feature in relationship, saying, yes, what we have here is, providing it's kept in the fridge or the freezer, it can last for weeks, in fact, much longer than that. And I think we have to educate people not to chuck out just because the date doesn't, they think the date is not the relevant date. The buy one, get one free offers are still going on. And I think basically we need to have a look, quite honestly, at what the supermarkets and other areas do. I know one of the supermarkets actually has, we do not like waste, and they reduce not only minus a third off, but also get it down to 20p or 70p to make sure it gets sold on a positive basis, and you know what you're getting. And finally, you just couldn't make this up. One of the problems that many people have probably already been made aware of is post-Brexit and drivers. Tesco at the moment are dumping 50 tonnes of fresh food every week because they cannot supply their stores because they haven't got the drivers to do it. You know, and that, I think, and that's only just Tesco. I've got no idea what happens with the other major companies that are supermarkets in the local area. So there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done. And we need to sort out, in one sense, the driver's problem in relationship to being able to provide the fresh fruit, the fresh vegetables that basically don't get dumped. And there's two lorry loads per week. You know, and Tesco lorries are not exactly small, get dumped every single week. And that is the nature of where we are at the moment. And that doesn't actually include the produce which is lying rotting in the fields because we haven't got the people in the farms in the UK to go and pick them. And I know that was an issue which the biggest blueberry farmer in Kent has got at this particular stage. So there's a lot of waste in food, and we really need to get to grips with this, members of council, very, very quickly.
Councillor Charles Chowdhury.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support the item and support what the Rushmoor Borough Council is doing for future generations and so on. But earlier on, I didn't have the opportunity to pay the tribute to my colleague, former councillor Roland Dibbs, who used to be, he was very keen for the recycling, and we sat 8 years together in the council as a cabinet member. And he was very keen he used to attend the Integra, and I think Councillor Poole-Taylor might remember him, that we used to discuss how we can improve our environment, how we can recycle our food waste. And Councillor Dibbs, who was served this borough council for 25 years and 4 years in the county council, he was a good friend of mine and colleague. And we will all miss him, and that is what I'm going to say, because I didn't have the opportunity to say a few words. Also, Councillor Sheila Stevenson. She was a very outspoken member of this council, and she used to stand up and speak a lot of issues, and I pay tribute to her as well. Although she was a liberal, but we were conservative. But it doesn't mean, that we don't take the other members' views. We take it very seriously, listen to them. If we can act accordingly, we will do that. And I think, that's the beauty of Rushmoor Borough Council. We're working together. We're not working separately, although we have to speak in the council. But working together is the main thing. I think we can achieve more working together than work isolatedly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Christine Guinness.
Thank you. As many of you know, I spoke at Cabinet about this a couple of weeks ago, and I am extremely supportive of this. With all the answers I had from the Cabinet, I went back to the residents and passed on all the messages that I possibly could. With the messages that come back, it's still the residents, as have been said before me this evening, residents in flats that are the most concerned about where they're going to put their waste in the communal areas. As we know, flats are a phase 2, and we know site visits are going to happen, but residents are really, really concerned about this. And I think, although it's a phase 2, I think our communication needs to start early with the residents and putting out there and explaining to residents that they are going to be a phase 2, but they will be visited and that they will be able to talk over their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gaynor Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to add that I'm in total agreement with all the points that have been made by my Labour colleagues tonight, and fully in support of the weekly food waste collection service. Having been part of the climate emergency working group for a little while, I'm fully aware that our recycling rates in Rushmoor have been pretty appalling compared to a lot of other councils for a long time. I have experience of food waste collections working very effectively in other parts of the country for many, many, many years, and I think it's just a shame that it's taken us so long to actually catch up. Obviously, we would have to be introducing this by 2023 anyway. I just wish maybe we'd been a bit more proactive many years ago on the recycling agenda. But as I say, I do very much welcome it. In line with what's been said by my colleagues, as a Labour group, we have spoken to many residents on this and are very aware of their worries, concerns about how it's going to work in general, how it's going to work for them. And we have put questions at our members' seminar, we've put questions at our groups, and I know that Councillor Guinness has spoken and again reiterated these questions to Cabinet on behalf of our residents. As Councillor Porter said, the communications with residents are going to be absolutely crucial here. And I think, again, this is why myself and Councillor Dibble are very keen that this has gone on to overview and scrutiny from the very beginning, so that we can make sure we're going in the right direction with this, rather than reacting to mistakes or failures at a later date. The communication is going to be essential to bring people along with us on this journey, because there are a lot of concerns, so that people understand why we're introducing this. There are many who say it's to do with cost cutting in terms of moving to fortnightly green waste collections. As we know, that is not the case. But if we don't bring people along with us, and our residents feel this is being done to them by the council, it could be a horrendous failure. So again, I say we very much welcome this. It's about time, and we're just very keen to make sure that all of our comms and introducing this and bringing our residents along with us are that we can support with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Martin Tennant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's so good and refreshing to hear all members of this council being so supportive in the endeavour to improve recycling across the borough. It's not an easy or a popular move. As many members will know, for many years there's been an absolute resistance to increasing recycling across the whole of the borough by introducing alternate week collection. And this, rather than reducing service, is adding additional service in. And I feel that the portfolio holder has done a fantastic job in bringing this forward to us to ensure that our recycling rate improves over time. We're ahead of the curve. We aren't mandated to bring this in yet, but we've got ahead of the curve. We've thought it was the right thing to do, and because it's the right thing, we're doing it. It will come down to every member and every interaction those members have with reluctant recyclers in their wards to explain the absolute climate emergency we face as a nation and a borough. And that will sometimes be difficult for them to face up and say that to their residents and explain that they'll have to make additional effort. The comms are critical, and the Labour Party are correct in their their laser vision on this issue, and I'm confident that the comms will be done to the best of their ability. But it's on a macro level too. So Councillor Roberts, despite the blueberries in Kent and the lorries in Dover and Amsterdam and whatever, what you need to do is focus on the members in your ward who will need support and encouragement to do the right thing, because it's the right thing to do. So I'm happy to second this this motion or recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. As there are no other speakers, please can I ask Councillor Sheila to sum up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I only first of all going to say how delighted I am that we have support across the chamber this evening for this. Councillor Porter certainly highlighted the cross-party working that there was on the working party, and that was very much welcomed. We are all committed to making Rushmoor more sustainable. The points raised by Councillor Dibble, Councillor Austin, Councillor Guinness about flats and communication certainly take on board. That's certainly a recognition of both myself but also the working party as well, that if the food waste service is going to be a success, then effective communication is absolutely essential. And we can see that at the moment from our from our own performance from existing services. Now, we know that 40% of the waste going into our residual service at the moment is food waste, and that's what we're going to be targeting. But on top of that, we know that there's a further 23% of material that's going into the residual waste, which is actually materials that we already recycle. So there clearly is a lot of work for us to do on the communication and educating our local residents, because we want to capture that waste as well, indeed. It was mentioned that flats are going in phase 2, and that's absolutely correct. The reason for that is we recognise the specific problems around flats, particularly in storage of waste containers, etc. So each flat, and where there is shared bins, will be visited by officers. We will talk to local residents, and certainly talk to social housing providers and also management agents of those particular properties, to make sure that we find a solution that is right for those individual areas. I certainly welcome the involvement of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee prior to the rollout of the service. I hope that they will continue also once the service is rolled out to actually look at what we're doing to make sure that we are achieving what the aims of that service is. Because in addition to that, the members' working party will be continuing in the coming months also to make sure that we keep on track and we are delivering the service as we envisage it. Councillor Roberts, as usual, then took the global view. I hope when he's off to Amsterdam and Brussels and wherever else he's using sustainable transport rather than perhaps following the Prime Minister's lead in jetting off to these far off destinations. It's interesting. RAP estimate that food waste in the UK accounts for some 9.5 million tonnes, of which only 30% of that waste was inedible. It has a value of about £19 billion each year and equates to about 25 million tonnes of greenhouse gases. And this is what we are trying to capture. RAP's figures showed that the average UK family was wasting nearly £60 a month in throwing away almost an entire meal a day. 1/5 of the food bought by households was ending up in waste, and around 60% of that food could have been eaten. So that's really what we are targeting. I think actually the success of the food waste service, and happy to be held up on that, is that after the initial launch of the food waste service, we actually see the amount of food waste being thrown out coming down as families realise just how much food they are wasting, can start saving themselves some money by not buying so much food in the first place and actually but not throwing it out. But just coming back to the points raised by members about communication. I was struck actually by the comments of Reverend Cummings earlier, suggesting that we build together, and that's it. We must build together with our community of Rushmoor. If we don't bring them on board, then this service just isn't going to work. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. We will now move to a vote. Those in favour, please show. Wow. That looks like it's unanimous. Anybody against? No, that's carried. Thank you very much. The third report on pages 41 to 48 is from the Corporate Governance, Audit and Standards Committee, which recommends the approval of the pay policy statement. I call upon the Chairman of the Corporate Governance, Ordinance and Standards Committee, Councillor Sue Carter, to present her report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the pay policy for 2021 to 22. It's obviously a policy that we have to do every year, and it's so that we are transparent to taxpayers and that we look at both senior council officers' pay and against the lowest paid employees. Can I move you all to 2.3 though, where there has been a change there? It says the second ratio included with the analysis looks at the relationship between the median remuneration of all staff compared to the chief executive. This ratio actually has been reduced from the last statement from 3.8.1 to 3.6.1. I therefore move this to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cullum? Thank you. I call on Councillor Paul Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to propose an amendment to this proposal, if I may. Although this is basically a straightforward statutory report, I understand that there are some queries relating to certain aspects of it. This is despite the fact that in the corporate governance panel or committee, none of these aspects were raised or debated at the time. Therefore, I propose the following amendment to the statement just made. In light of the contents of the statutory pay policy statement, I propose that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee be requested to undertake a review of the structure and application of the Council's pay policies to ensure that they meet the equitable requirements of the Council's taxpayers. I would like to move that amendment, please.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Christine Guinness, would you like to speak now? Councillor Guinness, would you like to speak now?
Very quickly to say, with cross-party communications, we agree with this amendment and that the pay policy statement should be moved to overview and scrutiny. Thank you.
Right. Having heard the amendment, it seems to have broad council support. I am proposing, with the consent of Councillor Carter and Councillor Cullum, as mover and seconder of the original motion, and the council, that it be incorporated in the recommendation as the substantive motion. Please indicate if you do not agree. Thank you. The amended recommendation is now open to debate. Anybody? No? Move on quickly. Councillor Carter, would you like to sum up?
Yes, obviously this has come after the meeting. I'm more than happy for it to go to scrutiny, where there is concerns or there's comments to be made that this can be looked at a bit further. It does have to be transparent to our taxpayers, and therefore I'm more than happy with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We will now move to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Those against? I think that's unanimous. Thank you. Item 5 is questions for the Cabinet. I can report that there are no questions have been submitted for response by the Cabinet. Would you please turn to page 49 for the reports of the Cabinet and committees, which are for information. I will call the pages over slowly. Please indicate clearly if you wish to ask any questions. Page 49, the first report, is from the Cabinet meeting of the 20th of April, pages 49 to 56. Page 57, the next report, is from the Cabinet meeting of the 8th of June, pages 57 to 63. Sorry? Councillor County?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 52, item number 65. I'd like to thank the Cabinet for approving the Council's Equality and Diversity Action Plan in April 2021, and I'd like to also pay thanks to the Reverend Malcolm Cummings and other community leaders who participated in the Council's work in this area over the last year. My question to the Leader of the Council is what progress has been made on the implementation of this action plan since April, including the appointment of the new Cabinet Champion?
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Canty, for asking me a question when Councillor Adrian Neal's away. Yeah, we're absolutely delighted, and thank you for mentioning Reverend Malcolm Cummings. Great to see him with us today on Council and for the rest of the year, in fact. So great to have you with us, and it was great to have Reverend Malcolm Cummings with us when we started this process. In fact, thank you very much for the notice of motion that we put together on this. Reverend Cummings. What have we done? We're doing an awful lot. More action from this council. And can I just say, huge thanks to Councillor Jonathan Canty, one of our youngest councillors, not on the Cabinet, but doing amazing things. You don't have to be on the Cabinet to do amazing things in this authority. Well done to Councillor Canty for all the work that he's done on bringing this forward. We had a great meeting with the LGA. We've got 3 phases. First phase is going to be done September 21. Second phase, March 22. Third phase in 2023. So there's rolling action on this. This is not just a talking shop. This is taking action. Staff, workforce, easy for me to say, and absolutely delighted that this year we've got Councillor Abu Chowdhury as our diversity champion, a great champion that's going to be looking at this for our authority across all the portfolios. So great progress made, but can I thank Councillor Canty and the committee for the great work they did putting this together.
Thank you. Page 53, page 54, page 55, page 56. The next report is from the Cabinet meeting of the 8th of June. Page 57.
Thank you. Does the Leader of the Council agree with me that nearly all members of this Council, from Leader to newest and backbencher, do many outstanding things in their performance? Does he also agree with me that allowing or inviting the Leader of the Opposition to attend Cabinet in a non-voting capacity helped with some of the internal decisions that had to be made during COVID and more recently with some major issues? Therefore, can I ask the Leader, will that hand of friendship be extended to the new Leader of the Labour Group, the Leader of the Opposition, Councillor Christine Guinness? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Clifford.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Dibble. And clearly, I'm not giving you enough attention this council meeting, and I do want to. I'm very happy to, Councillor Dibble, recognise the great work that you did as leader of the opposition, and we worked extremely well, I thought, and I thought that the cross-party discussions that we had were very constructive. We got grief from both our groups, which probably tells me that we got it about right with some of the things that we worked on. So yes, thank you very much, Councillor Dibble, for all the work that you did as leader of the Labour group. And we're absolutely delighted that we're going to be working with Councillor Christine Guinness, already invited to a cabinet meeting, and we've started off the year as we intend to continue, which is going to be open and transparent dialogue with the opposition. Despite the bizarre things you put in your election literature, we hold no grievances. So we're very happy to work with you on every aspect of the council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Page 58, page 59, page 60, page 61, page 62, page 63. Pages 64, Development Management Committee meeting of the 21st of April. Pages 64, 65, 66, 67, 68. Page 70, Development Management Committee on the 26th of May. Pages 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 72. Councillor Roberts.
Yes, could I ask, as I made a very strong representation on this particular application, calling it one of the most embarrassing I've seen, could the chair actually give me a response which actually details on what basis this application will fail against the criteria outlined by the CCC in relationship to the climate emergency programme? Is there anything it will have a tick box exercise being positive on?
Councillor Lee Jeffers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like to thank Councillor Roberts for his question. Unfortunately, with the chairman not here, I haven't got that information in front of me at the moment, but if he's happy with it, I will get back to him and formally put it in writing. That's from the chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Page 88, Corporate Governance, Audit and Standards Committee on the 27th of May. Page 88. Go back to 74. Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to know if we could have a quick update from the portfolio holder, if they're here, on the SO pipeline project. And given SO's recent change in their plans, obviously this is a very emotional and emotive subject for many, given the love for Queen Elizabeth Park. And I just wondered if this has made the legal agreements with SO that are mentioned and the start date of spring 22 redundant, or is there's going to need to be change there?
Councillor Marina Munro.
Sorry, at the moment we're going. The planning application has been submitted to the council, and it will be coming to committee. I haven't got the date in front of me, I'm afraid. So, if you'd like any further information on your question, I'd be happy to ask the head of planning. Well, I sit on the committee and I have voting rights, so I'd rather not at this stage. I'd like to supply that to you in writing.
Hello, could you do this through myself, please?
I can supply that in writing to Councillor Austin. Thank you.
Thank you.
74, Mr. Mayor. BBC South today, there was a 10-minute piece about the Esso pipeline going through Farnborough, and there was no representative from Rushmoor Borough Council on there. There were Friends of the Earth and Friends of this and Friends of that. But I wondered if were the council, were this authority asked to appear, or was it done without Rushmoor's knowledge? Not that it had to formally ask us, but I think it would have been good because the reporter referred to the planning application on a couple of occasions for both Rushmoor and Hampshire. So I just wondered if Rushmoor were contacted, because I expected to see Councillor Munro appear on there, but she didn't. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Yes, it's almost a version of the last question I asked Councillor Jeffers. Fossil fuels are on the way out, and COP26 suggests that we need to get our act together regardless of whether you're Saudi Arabia or Esso. So I think what I would like to ask is whether this development now meets the criteria which I've also already asked from the CCC in relationship to the future. Has fossil fuels now got any future, and why are we therefore spending and wasting our time supporting Esso to actually even renew this pipeline?
Councillor Jeffers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Roberts is asking the same questions before, just on a different location. I haven't got the information in front of me. But if you want to put both of those questions together, you'll get the one answer as soon as I spoke to the chairman about this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clifford.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just by way of clarification, we are aware of what's happening with Esso. We were not invited to make representation on the programme. There's been a lot of misunderstanding and misrepresentation of what's going on. A lot of people making scurrilous sort of accusations about this isn't being done, that isn't being done. We are in discussions with Esso. They are complying with what we agreed. They've not been the easiest of corporations to deal with. We've not been happy. We've had several meetings. Those meetings are ongoing, and we will keep council informed on what progress is being made. But certainly, Esso have not broken any conditions that were laid down with regard to the work that they were going to do. We are closely monitoring them, and council officials are keeping us advised on progress, and we've got further meetings with Esso to make sure that they comply with everything they agreed to do. We're going to be holding their feet to the fire regularly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Dibble.
Did you see the TV? No. The journalists had this 10-metre rule which said that this is the width of the working space. They went to a particular tree in the park. I think it was called the fairy tree, and that was in its way. So it was, sort of all gloom and despair. And I think it's a shame that they didn't ask Rushmoor for some formal input into that. So, thank you.
Councillor Clifford.
Yeah, thank you very much. And this is a very emotive issue for us, not just in Farnborough, but the borough. I will make sure that we've got a very clear comms put out in the next couple of days, exactly outlining our position. If we've got councillors not clear about the position that we're in, that's not a good place to be. How can we expect our residents to understand the position we're in? But can I just reassure councillors and reassure residents that this council are holding SO's feet to the fire, and we're watching every, not metre, Councillor Dibble, don't know how that but we're watching every inch. Okay, thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Move on. Page 88, Corporate Governance, Audit and Standards Committee, on the 27th of May. Page 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93. Item 7 is the report of... Hello? Councillor Christine Guinness.
On the Citizens Advice Rushmoor Trustee Board, it says Councillor Callum Stewart. It should also say Councillor Gaynor Austin, as she was put in to replace Councillor Nadia Martin. Thank you.
Anybody? Councillor Paul Taylor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Better late than never. Page 67, which is a long way back. I just happened to turn to that page. Item 75, item 1, 24 to 26 Church Lane East, Farnborough. That should read Aldershot. I mean, it's a technical issue, but it should be right all the same. The actual item is about Aldershot, not about Farnborough.
Item 7 is the report of the Policy and Project Advisory Board held on the 9th of June. This report is for information only. Well, that concludes the business for the meeting for the Council. Thank you very much, Councillors.